I went to the hospital believing pain was the worst thing that could happen to me that night. I was wrong. The injury was minor, nothing dramatic, a deep cut on my arm from a broken glass at home, but the bleeding would not stop, and it was late, so late that every place felt empty and echoing. The emergency room smelled like disinfectant and old coffee, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like they were tired of staying awake. I checked and gave my name to the receptionist, spelled it twice, waited on a plastic chair, scrolling my phone, trying not to think too much. After some time, a nurse appeared at the doorway, scanning the room. Her eyes moved across faces, and then stopped on me. She smiled slightly and said my name softly, clearly, perfectly. My body stiffened. I stood up automatically and followed her, but something felt off. I had not told her my name yet, not out loud, not to anyone except the receptionist behind glass. Still, I followed because that is what people do in hospitals. They follow instructions. Inside the hallway, she walked fast, shoes squeaking against the floor. The farther we went, the quieter it became. No small talk, no questions about pain, just silence. I tried to shake the unease, telling myself hospitals are strange. At night, we reached a small room. She closed the curtain and turned to me. That was when she leaned closer and whispered, "You should not be here tonight." My heart skipped. I asked what she meant. She straightened instantly, professional again, and told me to sit. She cleaned the wound carefully. Both her hands trembled just slightly, enough for me to notice. I asked her again how she knew my name. She looked at the door before answering and said I read charts. That answer made no sense because the chart was still outside, hanging untouched. She finished quickly, wrapped my arm, and told me a doctor would be in soon. Then she paused at the door and said, "If anyone asks, you never spoke to me." She left before I could respond. A different nurse came in minutes later, older, confused, asking who treated me already. I told her and described the first nurse. She frowned and said no one matching that description was on shift. My mouth went dry. She checked the system, no record of my treatment, yet my name was there but untouched. She left to ask around, leaving me alone with a buzzing light and growing fear. 10 minutes later, a doctor arrived, apologetic rush, stitched my arm and discharged me quickly like he wanted me gone. As I walked out, I saw the first nurse standing at the end of the hallway watching me. She did not wave, she did not smile, she simply mouthed one word: run. Outside, the air felt colder, sharper, like waking from a bad dream. I got into my car, hands shaking, trying to convince myself exhaustion had created all of it. But when I checked my phone, there was a missed call from an unknown number, time stamped exactly when she whispered my name. Inside my car, I listened to the voicemail. It was silent except for faint breathing, then a whisper, "You were not supposed to hear that." The call ended. I drove home on instinct, checking mirrors, heart racing. I locked every door, turned on every light, and sat on my bed replaying the night over and over. How did she know my name? Why did the system not show her? Why did she look afraid of the hospital itself? Around 3 in the morning, another message came from the same unknown number. "You were admitted under a name that should not exist." I stared at the screen, confused. Terrified, I replied, "Who are you?" The response came after a long pause: "Someone trying to keep you alive. Sleep if you can, they will notice soon." I did not sleep. When morning came, I searched my name online. Nothing unusual, no warrants, no records, no reason to be a ghost. But when I checked my hospital discharge papers, my name was spelled wrong, one extra letter added, subtle, easy to miss. Yet when I typed that wrong name into a search engine, my blood ran cold because that name belonged to someone who had died 3 years earlier in another state, same age, same birth date. I sat back, breathing shallow, realizing the hospital had not mistaken me. Someone had deliberately filed me as someone dead, and the nurse knew it. And somehow that mistake had almost cost me more than blood. I tried to convince myself that exhaustion was distorting reality, but the wrong name on the discharge paper would not leave my mind. All day at work, I caught myself staring at screens without reading a word. Every sound made me flinch. Every time my phone vibrated, my heart jumped. I finally typed the dead man's name again. And this time I dug deeper: news articles, old court filings, archived obituaries. His face stared back at me from the screen, close enough to mine to feel intentional. He had died during a medical trial, complications listed as unknown, no family interviews, no follow-ups, just silence, the kind that settles when questions are inconvenient. I called the hospital to correct the name, a normal, responsible thing to do. The woman on the line put me on hold longer than necessary. When she returned, her tone had changed. She said the record no longer existed. She asked me to repeat my name. I did. And she paused, then said, "Sir, there is no visit under that name last night." My mouth went dry. I insisted I had paperwork. She asked me to bring it in person if I wanted it reviewed. When I hung up, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, do not go back. I stood frozen in the middle of the office bathroom, staring at the mirror, trying to recognize myself. The next message followed immediately: "They will fix the mistake by fixing you." I left work early, packed a bag again. Without planning to, and drove aimlessly through the city until night blurred the roads. I parked in a grocery lot and sat there breathing, watching strangers live normal lives, a luxury I felt slipping away. The nurse's face replayed in my head. The fear in her eyes was not for herself, it was for me. The phone rang again, blocked number, her voice this time barely above a whisper: "You are not supposed to exist in their system," she said. I asked who they were. She said the Hospital is only the surface. Some trials do not end when patients die, they continue quietly using names, identities, paperwork. She told me the man whose name I carried had not been meant to die, his body failed before they could finish erasing him. And now my injury had flagged the old file, the system thought I was him. I asked why she cared. She inhaled sharply, and said because I signed his chart the night he died and I have spent 3 years knowing the truth. She said they would correct the error by aligning reality, meaning either I would disappear or the truth would surface, and neither option was safe. I asked what to do. She said disappear before they decide for you. She sent an address and said go there tonight alone. No hospitals, no police, no digital trail. I drove until the city thinned into quiet streets. The address led to a small rented house, lights off inside. She met me at the door in plain clothes, no badge, no uniform, just tired eyes and shaking hands. Inside she explained everything. Illegal trials, falsified deaths, reused identities, patients turned data points. When complications occurred, records were buried. She had tried to report it once, and learned how dangerous truth could be. The man whose name I now carried had tried to leave the program and died hours later. Officially unrelated, she said my appearance had reopened a ghost file and powerful people would move fast to close it. She looked at me and said you were never meant to be involved, you were an accident, but accidents expose patterns. That night sirens screamed far away, and she flinched instinctively. She said they were already watching. Hospitals, pharmacies, clinics, anywhere a record could appear. She handed me a folder containing copies, photos, dates, signatures, including hers, and said this is my insurance and now it is yours. My hands felt heavy holding it. She said by morning they would know she had helped me, and she might not get another chance. She asked me one question: are you willing to finish what he started and tell the truth even if it costs you everything? I did not answer immediately, but I knew there was no going back because the moment my name was taken from me, safety left with it. I said yes because the alternative was waiting quietly to be erased, and I had already felt what it was like to disappear while still breathing. The nurse nodded like she had expected that answer and told me we had very little time. She explained that the folder contained fragments, not enough to expose everything but enough to scare the people who had built the system. The problem was getting it into the right hands without being intercepted. She said official channels were compromised, layers deep, and anyone who moved too cleanly disappeared too fast. The plan was simple and terrifying. I would become visible in a controlled way, draw attention without triggering containment. She would stay hidden and guide me. The first step was to make sure I existed again under my real name. She took my phone, disabled location services, removed apps, told me to use cash only and avoid hospitals, government buildings, airports, and anything that scanned identity. At dawn, she drove me to a small clinic on the edge of the city, one that still used paper records, an old place forgotten by modernization, and died hours later. Officially unrelated, she said my appearance had reopened a ghost file and powerful people would move fast to close it. She looked at me and said you were never meant to be involved, you were an accident, but accidents expose patterns. That night sirens screamed far away, and she flinched instinctively. She said they were already watching. Hospitals, pharmacies, clinics, anywhere a record could appear. She handed me a folder containing copies, photos, dates, signatures, including hers, and said this is my insurance and now it is yours. My hands felt heavy holding it. She said by morning they would know she had helped me, and she might not get another chance. She asked me one question: are you willing to finish what he started and tell the truth even if it costs you everything? I did not answer immediately, but I knew there was no going back because the moment my name was taken from me, safety left with it. I said yes because the alternative was waiting quietly to be erased, and I had already felt what it was like to disappear while still breathing. The nurse nodded like she had expected that answer and told me we had very little time. She explained that the folder contained fragments, not enough to expose everything but enough to scare the people who had built the system. The problem was getting it into the right hands without being intercepted. She said official channels were compromised, layers deep, and anyone who moved too cleanly disappeared too fast. The plan was simple and terrifying. I would become visible in a controlled way, draw attention without triggering containment. She would stay hidden and guide me. The first step was to make sure I existed again under my real name. She took my phone, disabled location services, removed apps, told me to use cash only and avoid hospitals, government buildings, airports, and anything that scanned identity. At dawn, she drove me to a small clinic on the edge of the city, one that still used paper records, an old place forgotten by modernization. Calls, emails, messages, some polite, some threatening, some pretending to help. The nurse disappeared again as planned. The story broke slowly, at first framed as an inquiry into experimental oversight, then widened when more names surfaced: living people connected to dead records. Hospitals denied everything, lawyers spoke in circles, but cracks formed. Whistleblowers followed because once one voice breaks silence, others remember how to speak. I was followed twice, cornered once. A man offered me money to Recant said it could all go away. I refused. The pressure escalated, but so did visibility. When arrests finally came, they were quiet administrative transfers, resignations, the kind that never trend but matter deeply. Months later, the nurse contacted me one last time. She said the system was dismantled, not destroyed, because nothing ever is, but weakened enough to stop using people like paper. She said she was leaving the country, starting over. I asked her name. She said, "You never need it." I realized then she had given me back mine. I returned to a normal life slowly, cautiously. I avoided hospitals for a long time, and every time someone said my name unexpectedly, my heart still jumped, but the fear faded, replaced by something steadier. I learned that identity is fragile, not because it can be stolen, but because it can be erased, and that survival sometimes depends on strangers who choose conscience over comfort. I never went back to that emergency room, but sometimes I drive past it and think about how close I came to being corrected out of existence, and I understand now that the most dangerous systems do not hunt loudly. They whisper your name softly and hope you never ask how they know it.